Do you have a very, I mean, like, can you even be near it? Mild? So, I mean, like, otherwise I would say you sit over here because I do not want to be responsible for anybody's allergies. So, you know, I have to say that, and here's a few more. It's mild. Don't eat it. But you know, I had a lot of trouble figuring out how come this echoes? I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what I should demo for you because you're all at different levels already culinary students. So do I need to impress you by making something you've never seen before? No, because I assume you've seen it all before, right? And so I really struggle with what would be appropriate. And I think the most appropriate would be to have a conversation to let you sort of see and become aware of the process of how someone like myself develops recipes. But as we do that, kind of play with the food as well. So let me tell you about the book that I'm actually promoting and hoping I love seeing 2 copies on people's laps. 1 is fine, but 2 is better. And it's about the cookie that saved my life. And I think it's key, or changed my life. I think what's key about it, because this is my 11th book, right? So I've written a lot of books. You'd feel like I've written it all before. But this book in particular is something that I think really illustrates how a person that's been cooking as long as I have, and if it's written as many books that I have, that we never stop learning. So I want to give you, if any of you have already read the introduction to the book, then this is going to be old news. But for those that haven't read it, it'll be something new. So in 2021, my friend Michael, who I live with, brought home a peanut butter cookie from a bakery called Friends and Family. The baker, her name is Roxana. It's a fantastic bakery in Hollywood. And she actually used to be one of my bakers when I had Campanile and La Brea Bakery. She worked for me for a couple of years. But he brought back this cookie that immediately captured my eye because it had all the signs of a perfectly made cookie. Now, hopefully, as you're learning all the new recipes in class and becoming more and more better cooks, right? You'll notice that you can tell when something's not made properly. So if somebody gives you a mayonnaise that's not emulsified and broken, you now can tell that that's not properly made, right? It has all the signs. You can tell if a roasted chicken has 0 color, that most likely not only is it not made properly, or it wasn't baked properly or roasted properly, it's probably not going to taste very good either because it doesn't have all the nice caramelization, right? Well, a cookie doesn't lie either. So a peanut butter cookie, I don't care who makes it, has to have a certain look. It has to have rounded edges. That means it can't just melt in the oven into like a flat, thin disc. That's not a peanut butter cookie that we want to eat. It's got to have those nice rounded edges, and it has to have all the nice crack on top. And once you see that, you can probably assume that it's going to be nice and chewy. It's going to taste nice and peanut buttery, right? And it's going to be a good cookie. And so when I saw that cookie at my house, it's like, okay, great. That's a great cookie. And then I broke it in half, and it did everything it's supposed to have, right? It didn't run, it didn't break, it was chewy. And then I tasted it, and it tasted like peanut butter. And so I thought, okay, this is a great peanut butter cookie. How come 98% of the world makes such lousy peanut butter cookies? You know, don't they understand that this is how a peanut butter cookie is supposed to taste? But the other thing I did was I couldn't stand the fact that it was a better peanut butter cookie than I ever made. And so I needed to make my version and pretend it's better. And that's what you just ate today. And so what I ended up doing is I kind of married the idea of a peanut butter tart and a peanut butter cookie, right? So it's a cookie that thinks it's a tart, or a tart that wishes it was a cookie, right? One of the two. But you can tell that by, and I'm going to show you how I did that, filling the center with peanut butter and adding the Spanish peanuts on top, unless you're allergic to peanut butter or peanuts, right? If you like peanuts, then I think this is as peanutty as you can get. I mean, how was the cookie? Any good? I mean, I didn't hear any oohs or ahs or, oh my goodness, that's delicious. Nothing. But maybe you're used to good peanut butter cookies. I'm not. But, and so what it got me thinking, well, first of all, it got me the idea that I had said with my 10th book that I'll never write another cookbook, that I'm going to write another cookbook. So that's one of the ways it changed my life. But the other way it changed it was this, is that it got me thinking that really what I wanted to own as far as a baking book is I wanted to have a book full of recipes of all of the things that I really do want to make at home, but I don't have the right recipes for. So there's nothing creative in this book. I didn't change anything so that when you were done eating it, you thought, well, I really would rather eat a peanut butter cookie. You know, I didn't add all these crazy modern ingredients into this cookie to change it. It's still a peanut butter cookie, but it's a peanut butter cookie with as much flavor as possible that I could coax out of it. And so that's what I tried to do, or I tried to address in every single recipe in this book. And so making this cookie was something else that I think is up for discussion, is like creativity for the sake of creativity, or just making something good. I'm more of the school of making something just good, right? Knowing how to make it, having all the right technique to make it, but making it really good. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. And as I'm talking through this recipe, I am very happy to also converse with you, because I don't need a whole lot of I don't need a whole lot of concentration here, because look at it's all meased out for me, hopefully correctly. So let's start. Can I plug? Where do I plug my mixer in? And in the book, you'll notice if you go through the pages, there's no fancy equipment you need. You need a microplane. A freestanding mixer helps. You can have a handheld mixer. Many of the things can be done by hand. Everything's baked, so nothing's fried. Nothing is just a custard on the stove. It's everything is baked in the oven. The ingredients are pretty much available anywhere. There's a few sometimes special ingredients. In this recipe, there's sorghum, which I'll talk about, which is a grain flour. But everything is available online as well. So this recipe, and there's a handful of other recipes in the book that I felt I could not improve on. I couldn't improve on Claudia Fleming's ginger cake. So that's in there as her recipe. This is Roxana's base of the cookie, which I didn't think I could improve on. So that's why I've chosen the ingredients that she asked for. And one of the things she asked for is sorghum flour, which is a grain flour. Some people use 100% sorghum in their baking, and therefore they've turned their dessert into a gluten-free dessert, because this has no gluten. Roxana's book is called Mother Grains, and so she wanted to incorporate grains into all of her baking. And so that's why she uses the sorghum flour, and I left it that way. I think also what is important that I did in this book is that I eliminated the need for people to look for some of these recipes online. Like, let's say you want to say, I want to make a pineapple upside down cake. So you Google pineapple upside down cake, and what comes up is like 3,500 suggestions on how to make upside down cake, and then you figure, where should I start, right? And so I wanted to take that work away from you. It's in my book. That's where it is. That's where you start. Again, nothing tricky in here at all. I'm starting with unsalted butter, and I'm going to cream that and add some peanut butter to it. So is that okay if I ask for any kind of questions now? Because like I said, I'm not doing anything that you've never seen before, but one thing I am. So is everybody in the school, in the class, most likely here because they want to, this is going to be their profession? Or are there just some people that want to do baking or cooking at home? Is it mainly professional, or because
Raise your hand if you want to be a professional.
looks like everybody wants to earn money doing this. It's a great way to earn money. Well, because what I was going to say, especially when it comes to baking, I find that there's things that you maybe want to do in somebody else's kitchen, get that dirty where you have a lot of space, rather at home. So just like I'm in the school of not being so creative for the sake of being creative, but more to make things good, I'm also saying that there's things I want to make at home and things I want to make in the restaurant. Like, I don't want to make Queen Amman at home. I don't want to make croissant at home. I don't want to make puff pastry at home. I don't have a counter big enough. I don't want flour all over the place. I don't have a refrigerator that I want to go in and out and rest that laminated dough. So, I think that a book like this is something that's geared for people that bake at home, that really want to bake at home. But it's also recipes that clearly could be at a, not necessarily a fancy restaurant because nothing's plated, but definitely like a coffee bar and places like that. So I'm just going to cream it with my peanut butter. And in this case, I'm asking for, and Roxana just uses what I call a generic peanut butter, meaning a Laura Scudder's-y, Skippy, Jeff, all those names that we hate to love, but they actually have the best flavor when it comes to peanut butter. But are there any questions?
Anybody have a question?
Or
wait for the mic because we're airing.
Okay. Hi, Chef. I was wondering, since I'll be buying your cookbook in a minute, and since they're at-home recipes that you can make, is there one that you would recommend for maybe Christmas time to impress the family?
So, like Christmas, well, when I think of Christmas, besides the traditional Bûche de Noël or something like that, you think of warm spices. So, although, well, one is mine and one is not mine. There's a great recipe for a sticky toffee pudding, and that has all those warm spices. And Claudia Fleming's ginger cake is fantastic. And I think of those also super simple. And what's great about them is that the work is kind of done for you once you make that batter, because all these things are in a mold. And when you bake something in a mold, 80% of the work is done for you because you turn it out and it's beautiful, right? I'm adding my sugar to that.
We have another question, Nancy.
I want to point out something just maybe a little bit different than I do, and then I'm going to answer that question. And that's this, is that, and I'm not sure how you're being taught at school, but sometimes when things are taught or things are read in cookbooks, people just continue that direction without thinking about it. And something that I changed a couple cookbooks ago because it made so much more sense. When it comes to salt, spices, leavening, and say zest, I find it makes much more sense to add that at the same time as you add your sugar and cream it, as long as it's a cream dough, sorry, not when it's folded in like an egg-based cake, say. When it's a creamed-based cake or muffin or cookie, you know, we always read these recipes that say sift or combine the baking powder or baking soda or salt with the flour and sift it and add it at the end. But I never feel like it gets mixed in as well. It doesn't harm it to add it at the beginning like this, because baking powder and doesn't work until the liquids are added anyway. So just add it now and you're going to be sure that it's going to get mixed in. So that's the only little thing that's a little bit different than what you may see. Okay, question.
I have a question. So of course I'm sure you've tried all the different flours and different techniques for like milling things. Do you mill your own grains, or do you have a favorite brand of like all-purpose flour that you prefer?
You know, I'll tell you, and this comes more from the kind of the restaurant world. Do you have like, oh, I'll take this list. And that's this, that I, first of all, would never discourage anybody from sourcing flour or grains or milling one's own, certainly to buy the whole grains and have, because there's all those home mills you can buy. But there are local millers to buy from. And I think no matter what, that's always the best. In the restaurant where I need consistency and when I need to recommend when I need to recommend a flour in a cookbook, it's easier to use a flour that's a good flour, but is available anywhere. And so I use the King Arthur flours. They're good flours, they're consistent, and you can buy them anywhere. But that doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't mill your own, or some of the local millers sell their grains at the farmer's market. Absolutely try those. I'm just adding my egg yolk, my eggs that I mix with my vanilla in a steady stream, making sure I'm not breaking that batter. And then one thing I did do, and this is one thing that's really important to think about when you're cooking or baking, is that I have toasted, well, I should say, tossed in a neutral oil, or you could use peanut oil, toasted my Spanish peanuts with the skins, which is how I prefer them, and then nicely seasoned them with salt afterwards. And doing that is a really important step, because when you're cooking as well, you need to think about seasoning and flavoring every single layer of what you're doing. So yes, there's salt in my dough, and yes, there's already salt in my peanut butter, and I'm going to do some finishing salt as well, but I also season my peanuts. Just like if you're building a salad, every single layer of what you're doing should be seasoned. Super important. Do you have I'm sure you have a piece of parchment paper.
Parchment paper.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Can you ask me? Any other questions? Oh, here, wonderful.
Hi, so I see that your book is pretty thick. I was wondering
I'm
if
sorry, you see what?
your book is pretty thick. I was wondering if now, after publishing and everything, is there anything you left out of the book that you wish you would have put in?
Always. Always.
Anything off the top of your head?
Okay, so you know, like, so let's say it's a restaurant book, right? So it's public, you know, you have your year to work on it, which they always give you, and then they take, meaning the publisher, a year to produce it, and then it comes out. So like when you do a restaurant book, for instance, the year that they're taking to produce it, you think of all the new recipes that you come up with that you wish were in it. This book is specific on what's in it, meaning it's all of those, thank you, sort of those, I tried to avoid the word classic, although it made it to the title, but it's all of those desserts or sweets that we all grew up with, plus a few others that maybe we didn't grow up with, like let's say a cannelé, which is almost like 20 years ago, nobody knew what a cannelé was, but today it's something you find oftentimes in a bakery. So I included that. So I was just thinking the other day. So what I'm trying to say is what's in the book is kind of limited because I did, but there was a classic that I thought, I should have done it, and I didn't do it, and it'll come to me. But it was like, it was one, but then there was also something that I should have looked into and maybe changed. And that's this. I'll think of what that one was that I thought I should have done it and I didn't. But I was on just everybody listen to Good Food, Evan Kleiman's wonderful, wonderful radio show. She's on every Saturday morning. I think it starts at 10. It's an hour show. It's only food centric. And she's one of the smartest interviewers and knowledgeable people I've ever met, but her name's Evan Kleiman. And I was just on her show and she was asking me, because I have a chicken pot pie in the book, because there are some savory things. And I use the same crust for all my pies, whether they're savory or sweet. So, but she said, why, she didn't look at the other pies, but she said, why in your chicken pot pie dough recipe did you use butter? And I thought, oh, you mean as opposed to like vegetable shortening or whatever. And she said, because when I make chicken pot pie, I always use schmaltz, however you say it, schmaltz, but that's chicken fat in my pie. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. If she had told me that before I did the book, I would have tried chicken fat as opposed to butter and been able to talk about that. Like, I thought that's a great idea. I haven't tried it yet, but, and this is something probably you guys do all the time as well, but some people never see it, is that rather than getting flour all over the kitchen, trying to make that little funnel like this. And then of course, always stopping as soon as the batter comes together and not overworking it once that flour is in. Any other questions?
Hi, Nancy. I'm Liz, right here.
Oh, hi.
I look up to you as an inspiration.
Oh.
And in fact, I've seen your Chef's Table episode, and what really resonated with me was after La Brea Bakery and your divorce, you were able to separate yourself and move forward and have a lot of strength and just really build this amazing career from that. I just kind of want to know, like, how did you find that strength?
I think, I'm not sure if it was something that I found or maybe something I was born with. I have very strong women in my family, right? And strong mentors. But I think it also, I hate to keep referring back to the book, but what I did in this book is I had a vision or a or sort of I just never gave up as far as making these recipes, and I don't think any of them were made less than a dozen times, and most of them far more than that. Now, granted, in 21 and 20, 20 and 20 to 23, this year practically, we've all had a lot more time on our hands than we ever did. So I had the time to do it. But I didn't. And it's kind of when I'm drawing that connection between finding that strength is it's not necessarily finding the strength, but just persevering, knowing what you want and getting there. And that's really what I've done. And I always do with my cooking, but I really did it so much in this book is I didn't give up. I would make something and bake it and it would come out of the oven and I would think, oh, this is good. It's pretty good. And then I would think, it really isn't that good, you know? And I kept until I felt that I came to the level of every single dessert, and not every single one is my favorite, but of that, you know, that version that I came back out with that's the best of that version, except for now the chicken pot pie, because maybe I need to fix the crust, you know, and I think it's just that is not giving up.
Excellent.
So once this dough is made, which this is, and you can keep it and make it some more, you need to chill it. And I have some chilled, hopefully. And so that you can just roll it into balls of whatever weight you want. Oh, did that not go in the, oh, it is chilled.
Yes, we
Kind
chilled
of.
it.
It's a little sticky. Okay, so I could use a sheet, half sheet or sheet, because I'm not going to do this all. You guys can do that too. I'm not here to work. I'm here to. So, right? That we'll agree on, and also we'll agree on that. We're going to roll them all in sugar, right? And some of the cookies, you know, some of the cookies are rolled in a demura or turbinado sugar. That's a great sugar too. Another recipe that's really a great recipe in the book is, again, it's not mine, and I was never afraid to say that it was not mine, because recognizing when something's great is also a wonderful ability. But there was a cookie that I never understood, and that was something called a snickerdoodle. Does anyone? I didn't grow up with them, but once I finally had them as an adult, I thought, what? Besides an awful name, because that is kind of an awful name, I didn't understand what they were. But then I had one at a coffee bar in Culver City by a chef there, and I put her snickerdoodle recipe in, and it is a great sugar cookie. So hopefully you'll have a good time with these recipes. And as long as you follow the direction, I'm pretty confident they were very, very well tested. So except for, oh, there's one mistake though. Well, there's a few mistakes, but one that matters is the corn muffin recipe is wrong, by the way, which I'll tell you what's right. You can all write in your book. But there's a couple things that are wrong that don't pay attention. You know, there's so many numbers that are involved in a cookbook, you know, and so many times you change things that it's so easy to have mistakes. So for instance, in the carrot cake recipe, I thought what I wanted to do was pipe the frosting in between the layers of the mold. And then I realized, oh, you don't have to pipe them, just frost the cake and frost it in, you know, within the crevices, right? Much easier. And so I took that out, but in the what you need part of that recipe, it says you need a piping bag, which you don't. So those kind of mistakes don't bother me. The mistakes that bother me is that there is a ingredient mistake, and the ingredient mistake in the corn muffin is, Juliet knows. Do you not remember now? No. That's just another. It is. the weight is right, which you should all know you're gonna weigh it anyway, so I'm not gonna even tell you. It's the measure, it's the cups that aren't right, but the weight's right. But something got messed up in the conversion of the, and everything, by the way, in the book is, you know, because a lot of people still are resistant as far as converting to weight, but we all know that it's so much easier and so much more accurate. Okay, I'm gonna leave this for you along with that. I'm gonna even put them together, because why not? And now you can make peanut butter cookies for somebody.
Thank you.
That's my gift to you. Okay, so what I then did with these cookies after I made Roxana's, as I call them, near perfect. Now I know where all the white towels in this company go. We get all the yellow ones with the blue stripe.
Yeah, you prefer the
You
white
get-
ones?
Oh, yeah, I can't stand that yellow. It looks so dirty to me. Okay, so then what I did, and I don't know what my thought process was in doing this, was I then made a divot in all the cookies like this. And it, again, this was kind of far back, further back than when, I mean, because it was the first recipe that I did before I decided I was going to write a book, is I made a divot in all of the cookies. And then for some reason, and I filled it with the nuts. I mean, I filled it just with the peanut butter. And then I set it in the oven for 4 minutes and then added the nuts. And I must have tried the nuts on before I set the peanut butter. And I think probably what happened was the cookies started to spread and all of the nuts fell off. And so I think that's why I must have set it in the oven for the 4 minutes and then continued cooking for another 4 or 5 minutes. Some still will fall off, and you need to pile them back into the center. And then the other thing that I did, and I do with all my cookies of this type, is when they come out of the oven, I can't help but to kind of reform them just a little, gather like the little bit of unevenness and make them more round. Do you have a scissors? In the book, because I wanted to make it easy, sometimes when you write a book and you write piping bag, oh, no, yeah. And you write, you don't trust me with a knife? And you write piping bag, then immediately many home cooks close the book. You know what I'm saying? They say piping bag, I can't do that, but it's easier. So just pipe the center with piping bag full of peanut butter, but you could use a spoon. Any other questions?
Hi, Chef Nancy. My name is
Yes.
Kimberly. It's such a pleasure for me to meet you today. So I have an interest with gelato business.
Pardon me?
Gelato business, and I acknowledge that you have a Nancy fancy.
Uh-huh.
And then I have two questions actually. So for the first one, if there are any specific challenges that you face in making gelato compared to other frozen dessert?
Well, I'll tell you something. We do gelato and sorbetto at our restaurant and always have since Mozza opened. Before that, when I had Campanile, I always made my own ice cream, and at Spago, I always made my own ice cream. And just to give you a little understanding of the difference, because a lot of times what was happening is people were just making that frozen, what we think of in the ice cream world. And if it was an Italian restaurant, they'd call it gelato. If it was French, they'd call it glacé. If it was American, they'd call it ice cream. But actually, all three have different sort of rules. So this, we're gonna put in for like 4 minutes until it just sets, and then we'll put the peanut, oh, yeah, and then we're gonna salt it. So an ice cream always has eggs and a sherbet, because those are kind of ice cream. Sherbet is kind of the same. One's fruit based, one's dairy based, but a sherbet legally can have dairy in it. Okay, so a glacé was what they say in French, ice cream, and sorbet, right? So sorbet never has dairy in it, but glacé always has eggs and cream or milk. Gelato does not have to have eggs, but it has more milk than cream. Usually the French version has half and half or more cream. Italian does not. Oftentimes it's more milk than cream. Doesn't have to have eggs, although it can have eggs. And sorbetto is also just fruit, does not contain dairy. That's one thing. So challenges. There's always challenges because of running that mixture through a machine that not only does it come out smooth and creamy, right? But that when you put it in the freezer, it stays that way. And if it's not made or you don't have the right formula, it falls apart, no matter what version of American, French, or Italian. So for the version at Nancy's Fancies, I am just providing the framework for the recipe, but the people that really own that company and the people that work for them are the ones that have the science behind how long it has to last in the freezer, how it comes out of. Now they're doing it a very small batch in a machine very similar to what I have at the restaurant. In big commercial factories, like let's say like a Haagen-Dazs or something, or a Ben and Jerry, there the things are, run through pipes, and it's just, they're not batch frozen, it's much more industrial. But yes, there is challenges, because what might seem right or taste right and taste good right out of the machine, you go back to taste it a little bit later and it's either rock hard, or it starts to melt, or the color changes. So it's all about working on that formula, and it's not easy. And the hardest ones are the ones that are based on fresh fruit, because the fresh fruit from season to season, batch to batch, it always changes with the amount of natural sugar or amount of water in there. I think of all three, because I've made all three of those frozen desserts, the most challenging is the Italian. And that's because of the temperature that they keep it, and because the gelato doesn't all have eggs, and those are natural stabilizers, and you add stabilizers. The amount of components that make up a gelato or a sorbetto are very important, of the percentages, the percentage of solid to the percentage of sugar to the percentage of water. Those percentages are key to when you have one that's really excellent, and that meant they met all those requirements. I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's like, let's say 70% of the density, and 10% of water, and 3% of sugar, whatever it is. It has to, in the end, it has to fit into that kind of graphic, or it won't be right. And you really know, I mean, you go to in Italy and you go to a big city like Florence or Rome or something like that, and there's hundreds and hundreds of gelato shops to go to, and you certainly quickly find out which ones are good and not. So a little bit more, that's okay. See how it's starting to spread? Yeah, because that's still a little bit runny, but that's okay. Just for the time of it, we'll do that. And so then what I would be doing is I would be piling up in the center a nice amount of peanuts and kind of pressing that in like that. And then baking it for another 4 to 5 minutes. And again, some of these are going to spill off. And when they spill off, when they come out of the oven, you just plop them back on. But you need a bunch of peanuts in there. But see how they're keeping their rounded edges as they're supposed to? We know that's a healthy cookie, and we know that's a properly made peanut butter cookie. And there's there's so many schools to go to, such as the school you're in. So many great bakeries now for people to buy baked goods in. And there's also so many great cookbooks out there. I find that these days it's less and less understandable when somebody makes a bad version. It's like, don't you look at cookbooks, or didn't you go to school, or like, you really think that that's good? Okay, and now I'm going to sprinkle on a little bit of flaky salt, because that really helps the flavor. And then we're going to bake it for another 4 to 5 minutes. And peanut butter cookies continue. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Peanut butter cookies continue to cook with that residual heat. And so you don't want to overcook them, because you do want to keep that chew. Oh, sorry. Any other questions?
Sorry, one more question.
Sure.
So I know that you also have bakery, you have like restaurant and the gelato too.
No bakery.
No bakery.
No,
I
no.
used, sorry. And then because I'm in a management program right now, I'm just wondering about like the business side. So like, is there any specific challenges like compared to like each business? And then how do you usually overcome it?
Well, I think I'm not a lot, when you have more than one restaurant, and when you have more than 5 employees, at that point, you, I think, need to be able to sort of diversify, right? So myself, what's the answer to that is that you hire good people like yourself that can handle that part of the business, because someone like me, I can't do that. Both you need to, I need to understand what's going on, but the managerial part is such a huge component of, well, any business, but certainly the restaurant business, that people forget that having a restaurant is not a hobby, it's a business. And there's tough numbers that one needs to live up to and pay attention to. And so the challenge would be if you try to do it all yourself. The smart way to do it is to find people that can do it and keep that eye. So that's a great part of the program that you're involved in, and definitely a position that every restaurateur needs.
You had a question? Yeah.
So I'm Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
You're doing you find the recipes. Do you let Roxana know that you love her recipe?
Of course.
So that must be encouraging. And what does it feel like when somebody loves your recipe and comes to you and says, can I use it or change?
It's, yeah, flattering. And
Yeah.
of course, anybody that thinks that there's a secret in baking, and every once in a while you'll say to someone, I love that cookie. Would you mind sharing the recipe? And when they're like, oh, no, that's top secret. It's like, first of all, nothing's top secret. Believe me. Second of all, it's all been done before. And third of all, why would somebody want to stop? Like, that's how I felt about bread. Like, people, when I first did my bread book, because I was so excited that I kind of for myself, unlock the mystery of how to make a decent loaf of bread, and I really wanted to share it with the world, it would be so short-sighted of me to say, I figured out how to make a better bread, but I don't want anyone else to be able to improve upon it. Or, it's like, why not? Why not continue that process, right? And I also am always, no matter what it is, if I am inspired by somebody, or it's obviously someone's recipe, that's the first thing that goes into the head note, because I think it's important for people to know that someone like myself, who's a cook and a cookbook writer, that we don't live inside a bubble, that we get all of our inspiration from everybody else. And so it's part of the story, and stories taste good. It makes the food taste better that that Roxana, who used to work for me, made this cookie, and, I decided to try to make it better. I say better in jest, by the way, because her cookie is great. And, it's not better, but I'm just saying that. But, it makes the story better.
The second part would be then clearly you're, like you said, you test it 12 times. You can't be the only person tasting.
Yeah.
So how do you build your team? Who are your trusted tasters or testers and things like that?
Well, people that, I have a lock-in tester. That's, testers, which is the people who work in the restaurant, right? And, I respect them, but also I do find those people that are not maybe in my restaurant, I do trust, and say, hey, is this, and is this really the best version of a lemon bar? Or what do you think of this lemon bar? And if they say to me, that's the best lemon bar I ever ate, then I know that I got there.
Relationships.
Yeah.
Another question? Okay.
What's your biggest piece of advice for chefs that want to open a restaurant? If you have any mistakes that you want, or mistakes
So
that you don't want
I
other
didn't
people to
hear all, but I said, are you saying, did you have advice for someone that wants to open a restaurant? Or I think, the only advice I would have, and I would definitely be encouraging, because, make sure you're ready. That's one thing, because, a lot of people maybe jump the gun just a little bit too early, try to make those mistakes on somebody else's money right now, right? But so make sure you're ready. But then I think that start small, I certainly know that I did, I started kind of modestly, but start small. It's a big investment, and it's not a surefire return. We all know the life of a restaurant, and how vulnerable they are, and they're not all successful, unfortunately. So I would say learn from other people's mistakes for a while, and try to figure out how you would do it the same or do differently. Don't start too ambitious. Don't start with, I'm going to open this restaurant and by next year I want to have 50 more, right? But I think also, obviously pick a good location, and also make sure you appreciate the team that helps you work, right? And realize that it's not just you, but it's a village that has helped you or helps you to get where you are. And also that it is a business, that it isn't a hobby, and you've got to treat it like a business. And sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's like, wow, I can't give you that raise, or sometimes I can't have the 20 people I want in my kitchen, because there'll be nobody in your kitchen, I mean, you just.
Hi, my name is Tamara. We met you at Alex Loves Lemonade.
Oh,
Nice to see you again.
hi.
My question is about raising your family when you have a restaurant, and then also, are your children involved in the restaurant business? Or are you handing it down to them? Where does your business, go from here?
So my whole career as a mother, which is still, even though nobody lives with me anymore and I have grandchildren, is still a mother, right? It's always been as a working mother. And I recognized very early on that for myself, I knew I would be a better mother if I was also a working mother. So that's, and that's not true with everyone. So you've got to decide, and you also have to realize that it can work. But it takes a lot of work to make it all work, right? It's important to let your kids know that in the end, they're going to be the priority. However, they're going to be seeing that you're not always there, but you're there for all of the milestones, the important things, that you know what's going on, that you've got great help. Wow. So this is kind of what I can't help but do, is like reform just a little, right? But actually these came out, you got a good oven. It's not so bad. And then if you hadn't taken my peanuts away from me, I would have added a few more. Oh, there you go. Thank you. I would have added, just because remember, these are already toasted. So, and my peanut butter is still soft. So I'm not like putting something raw back on, but I like that look of very peanutty. And these are right out of the oven, as you can tell. Did everybody get a peanut butter cookie that we passed around? No? Did we not have?
Who did it here?
Because look, we
In
have
this
some right.
area? Okay, so
Oh,
we
wow.
have the-
Why did you not get them? Oh. Okay, well, now we have 3, 6, 9. Yeah, and you can make more. We'll make more, but we have 12 people that if they didn't get it. Great. Yeah, let's sign books.
Hi, Nancy. So I'm John. My question was, since you brought up the fact of bread, I remember you saying that was
Tried that I brought-
bread. I remember you saying that was one of your obsessions at the time. Would you say that desserts now is your new obsession, or are you still looking for it?
Well, bread was because it was a single. I mean, desserts always has been. I was obsessed with writing this book, but I think I'm obsessed every single day with what I do, with what I do, is that's just who I am by nature. But yet this was an obsession, this whole process, because it wasn't that I just wanted to bake something. Again, I wanted to bake something that everything about it made it that much better. Like, how do you make a better peanut butter cookie? Well, I think I made a better peanut butter cookie by adding more peanut butter and peanuts, right? But that didn't come around with the first try.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question, Nancy?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask about the Spanish peanuts. So it's to get the peanut flavor. Did you test any other peanuts?
No, I didn't. I like Spanish peanuts and I love the skin on them. So I didn't. And because that's what we use at the restaurant.
Okay.
But I love the skin. I'm much more like skin on almonds, for the most part. Because I think nuts and baking go so well together,
Two more.
And one other thing you're gonna notice in the book too, and I've said this in the last couple demonstrations that I have, that when you look at this peanut butter recipe, well, no, are you gonna look it up? Anybody? Thank you. Even the one
Oh,
person.
she knows its pages.
Yeah, that. Okay. So one thing that might come to mind, if any of you are astute, we'll see. Let's just put that out there. Does anybody, when they read just through the ingredients, does anything catch your eye like, oh, wow? Like besides sorghum, because that's like, anything else? All this you have at home, okay, but something different. I mean, something that's like, oh, wow, that's weird. What? No, no, I'm talking about peanut butter, the peanut butter cookie. I'm just saying, when you read the peanut butter cookie, and I won't put you on the spot. Somebody was gonna get a. What about it? The quantity well, vanilla bean paste, by the way, I use it all the time and I like it over vanilla extract. Roxana had vanilla extract in her recipe, so I left it, but I also put my preference, which is vanilla bean paste, because with the paste, you get all the flecks like you do from the vanilla pod. No, but I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but a couple people have brought it to the attention because they thought it was a mistake. Do you see that it asks for 2 tablespoons? Now, most recipes, and I guarantee even here, if you look at a recipe for a cookie, you're going to see a 1/2 pound of butter, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and you're going to see a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Well, that is the most ridiculous quantity I've ever seen. First of all, nobody tastes a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract in anything they make. I don't care what they say. And especially if you're using a measuring spoon as opposed to weighing it, that vanilla extract is going to get stuck in the bottom of that spoon also. So you don't even get a 1/2 teaspoon. So I did take the liberty of tasting the amount of extracts that needed to go into the batter. And one recipe has less than a tablespoon and some more. So that should change everybody's way of thinking. It's like a 1/2 teaspoon of extract. That's a good example of people just taking a recipe and just every year, same thing. 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/4 teaspoon of, like cinnamon. It's like, really, 1/4 teaspoon? I'll leave you on that note. Now let's sign books.
Yes, thank you so much, Nancy.
All right, whoever didn't get a cookie, we need to give them our cookies. All right, I need my pen. Do I have my purse?